Welcome to this edition of Red Sea Roundup. I am the host for the day, Pam Marvin, and I am very thrilled to have in studio with me today Miss Dorothy Pepper. Welcome, Dorothy.
Thank you, Pam.
Thank you for
having me. I do. I go by anything that's short
Dottie?
for Dorothy. Yeah.
Yeah? Mm-hmm. What most commonly?
Dottie.
I love it. I told you over the phone that that's my daughter's name, so I'm already endeared to you over that.
Aww,
I think that's great.
Little Dot, yes.
Well, I had the honor of attending a mass for a friend of mine who had a miscarriage. It was a beautiful ceremony with Father Albert, in which case I said, Father Albert, if there's any time you would like to get on the radio, let me know, and I would be happy to do a show. A few weeks later, I get a little message that this has really been on his heart to get the news out about Zélie's hope. So today's show is all about the origins and the beginnings and the ministry of Zélie's hope out of St. Thomas Aquinas here in the College Station area. Okay, Miss Dorothy, you know the background, you know the origins. So please tell us the story of the origin of Zélie's hope.
Okay, well, Zélie's hope is a ministry for families who've experienced a miscarriage or stillborn, and they're just, that loss is devastating. And so for us at St. Thomas, it comes through Father Albert. Father Albert is the pastor. He's my superior, and he is passionate about serving his people who are in pain for all sorts of reasons, but this one is close to his heart. Zélie's hope is based on just how can we find a safe place for families who are going through a loss that's so intimate, and it's hard to get it in the public.
Right.
You know, I don't know. People don't know how to respond to that. So.
Right. So I love that when we talked and you said that it touched Father's pastoral heart so deeply and dearly because many people had been coming to him. Mm-hmm. And so then after that is when he came to you and said, okay, Dorothy, we have to do something. What? And so then what was your next step when he said, I want to start something, but you do the research and run with it?
Yeah, that's exactly what he said. Miss Dorothy, figure out what we need to do, see what's out there. And there is a ministry, it's a national ministry out of Louisiana called Red Bird Ministries. And it is a Catholic ministry, and it has many, many resources. It was founded by a couple who have experienced their own loss, and through that, they developed this. So I just dug into that. I bought the startup kit, and I knew that I needed help. This isn't something that I could just do all by myself. So naturally, I called on our parishioners and our who's out there that feels the same way Father does and who has also been through it. And so we had this welcome weekend. It's similar to a ministry fair. And I had my social ministry table with all the ministries that are under that umbrella. And here we had this brand new one. And we didn't call it Zélie's Hope because that came later. So I introduced it as Redbird Ministries. I had a sign-up sheet, such a simple sign-up sheet. And, had like 6 or 7 people on there. So this was maybe in August and it was in 2023. But it seemed like the fall just wasn't a good time. They were, we want to help, but never could get them in a meeting. And so I just said, okay, Lord, it's your timing. I can't rush this. We want it to be solid before we even put it out there. So I just said, I'll just wait till after Christmas. And that's what I did. I called on these people who were on my little sign-up sheet, and they were just ready. I mean, it was time. So we started meeting in February, and by the time we met every month exploring all the resources, we were just seeing, like, how can we launch this? What do we do to get it started? and prayed, and they did a little bit of piloting with the resources from Redbird Ministries, and then we just came to a consensus that we wanted to have our own ministry for miscarriage here in our deanery. And that's how we came up with Zelie's Hope. Saint Zélie and Zelie Martin and her husband are saints. Saint Louis and Saint Zelie are Saint Therese of Lisieux, the Little Flowers' parents. And they also have a daughter, Saint Leonie. They have these daughters. Anyway, Saint Zelie had her own miscarriages, and so she has a nice little quote, and I may not get it word for word, but it's something to the effect of, one day we'll reunite with our little ones in heaven. And we use that a lot as our go-to. We've asked her to pray for us, and Father came to us and said, we can do a memorial mass for the babies that were never, properly given a mass, or and maybe they haven't been named, and this would be a great opportunity to have a mass where they can name their baby, and we'll have naming right. And we just got so excited. We're like, yes, this has got to be the way we launch this.
Oh,
how
beautiful.
do you start something by just, hey, let's get together and have a meeting and support each other? But with a mass, it was amazing, and it was a great turnout.
And when did you have the mass? Like you said that it started right after the new year. So that would have been 24?
24, July. That we've had 3 since then.
3 of the masses since then.
But that first one, it was so many. It was a great attendance because many people needed the healing from all ages.
But let me pause right there, because what you just said just really struck a chord with me. That this ministry really is about healing. I mean, grief support in general is, but this is one that has been sorely overlooked, I think, as a culture. I think in the olden days, let's call it, that you just didn't really talk about those things and you didn't know about them. But today, I think the pro-life aspect of what the battle we've been in, since Roe v. Wade for the life of these babies has really brought these losses, not that they weren't always profound, but that we can celebrate the life of the short life that they did have in utero. So that's really a beautiful thing that's like crescendo, as I've noticed over the years, right? Okay, so let's not back up, but start with the memorial mass. Just describe it in detail, because it's so lovely. I love hearing you talk about it.
Well, it is. It's very beautiful. We had full-blown choir. Father had, his altar servers. It was very beautiful. Incense. It was.
All the bells and smells.
All the bells and smells of a memorial mass for our little dear ones. And families were coming, and they were writing the name.
So that was in the narthex, like they would have the candle and the paper. Is that what you were saying?
So when they arrive, we have a candle in the narthex with name cards, and we invite them to take a candle to represent their, in memory, take a candle in memory of their baby, and write their name on the name card. And then as they enter into the church, there's the Book of the Dead for them to write their baby's name into. And then we just begin Mass beautifully. Father says his homily. After the homily, he explains the next step is that they're going to come up with their candles. They're going to bring their name card, and we're going to light the candles. And they'll go back to their seats. He'll have the naming rite ceremony. We also present the Book of the Dead during the offertory. It comes up and placed before the altar. And then after that, he also does a blessing of the parents. And it's very moving. There were people there who were older, maybe 70, maybe 80, saying, I never had anything for my baby. It wasn't a thing. I didn't know I could do this. So all ages of families and parents were there for their babies that they've lost. And had not really acknowledged in a memorial mass. So
Right.
it was very beautiful. And after that, they were welcome to take their candle home. And we also have a reception in the hall, and where they can come and connect, and we take their name, and because then families, the parents, we have a parent support group. And
yes, I was about to ask you about that. Okay, so you've had the Mass. It was a good turnout, it sounds like, that first one last year. And from there, I guess the word was getting out that there is the monthly meetings. Is it monthly?
It is a monthly.
Okay, so tell us about those.
So the team and I, the team that the Lord brought to us to launch this, had already set a date to invite parents to come after the Mass. So it would have been like in August, and during those meetings, I don't know. It's a beautiful experience. These couples heal each other. They get to say whatever they want in any way, whatever they're feeling, their emotions, it's just beautiful because they are sharing the thing about a miscarriage is that it tends to make the parents go inward and recluse. And when we're in these meetings, they get to get it all out.
Yes.
And no one's trying to give them a cure. And, kind of our family members do that, right? They're like, oh, here, let's have some ice cream. It's going to be okay. And,
all that encouragement instead of sympathy.
Exactly.
Yes. So and they just need sympathy.
Right. And when they're together, that's what happens. They pour it out.
So they do meet once a month now still?
They still do. Our next Mass came in December because Father Albert was like, this is a really hard time of the year for families. Let's just offer one, right before Advent. And so I think we did, it might have been the first week of Advent, and it was very well attended. And then we just had our last one of this year in July, on July 25th.
Yeah.
So it was very nice as well.
Very well attended, I hope.
Very well attended. It's like the people who need to be there were there. And
it's so beautiful.
I have to share that this last Mass we just had, there was a lady there that I see all the time. She's a great volunteer. And I said, what are you doing here? Are you, friends with She goes, I'm a nurse. And a lot of these are my babies.
And isn't that beautiful?
I mean, it did bring tears to my eyes when she was there for her babies that, that she had seen.
Right. Well, as myself as a fertility care practitioner, I see this all too often. And I'm so very happy to be able to pass along this ministry to Zélie's Hope. So they have the monthly meetings. And so if someone wanted to get in touch, I guess they could just go to stabcs.org and it's under ministries.
It would be under engage.
Okay.
And then under there, it would be under grief. In the grief area because there are a lot of ministries in that list.
Right. And you could probably look at the bulletin. It's from time to time as well. Check in with that. And they just get together. So it's people that have experienced exactly what you're going through and just a kind of a discussion. Is that what you say? They just get together and
they do.
Have some fellowship and friendship. Yeah.
There's a little format. I mean, it opens in a prayer, and depending on the time of the year, the prompts they do. I'm just going to call my couples that help me kids because they're young. In my eyes, they're so sweet and young and amazing. But the kids come up with prompts, and it just might be two things like, hey, with, Father's Day coming around the corner, what's it like, and then they just begin to have their discussion, and it's lovely, and the Lord is very present. And Father Albert has truly given us a gift at the parish by just following his his own, prompts and, just what, they come to him. He knows he doesn't have, there's only one of him. So that's what he does. He's like, let's get this done, figure out how to do it. And
right. So, again, going back to my experience when I went to the Mass in my friend's home, and I was so impressed that Father was there to give a Mass. I said, Father, this is so generous of you. That you're coming to do this in their home. And he says, oh, no. He says, it's right here in the rubrics. And he's showing me in the missal and going, look, it's right here in the rubrics. This is how it's supposed to be done. But I was just really struck by his love and his passion for this. And then he followed us to do the internment too. So they're in the Bryan-College Station area. We have a Catholic cemetery, Mount Calvary, in which many of these little babies are interned there. And it's a beautiful area of the cemetery if you haven't been there, to intern these loved ones. It's a great memorialization of them as well, which people don't think about that's even available. So that's only been around for about 16 years. Before that, there wasn't anything like that. So, yeah.
Yeah, it's very sweet. I've heard that masses are offered out there during All Souls Day.
It is like even more than one priest, I believe, comes out there now to do that. So it's beautiful. There's over there by the mausoleum, there is an altar.
Yeah, it's very so moving and so beautiful. And like you said, it's very loving.
Yes.
And
well, one of the things I can say is that as we know, these little souls are eternal. They do have a soul. In fertility care, I always talk about the moment of conception. I have nicknamed it soul infusion, when they see the spark of life.
It's beautiful.
That it comes in. So we know these babies are eternal, that we will see them again. As Zélie is so mindfully said, that's just so beautiful to remember that you'll be greeted by these loved ones. And what a bouquet of blessings.
I agree.
Should we all make it into heaven? That's the goal. That's the goal.
That's right.
Yeah.
We'll get to see our little saints.
Exactly. Again, so I loved what you said, that this is a deanery-wide ministry, that you do have core members on the team from the whole area, correct?
Yes, so we have a family from St. Joe's and a family from St. Anthony's, and 2 are from St. Thomas. And they do such a fabulous job of just reaching out to all the parishes, not just their own, but we get it out there as well as we can.
Right.
And then I do my best to handle it at St. Thomas.
Right. So I want to also just say shout out to Waco. If you're listening, Waco, and you're interested in getting a Zélie's Hope ministry started, Miss Dorothy Pepper over at St. Thomas Aquinas in College Station, she would be your resource go-to person. You've heard the way that the origins of this beautiful ministry. Talk to your pastor about it. If there's something he's interested in having there in his parish, there in the Waco, Palestine, or I don't know, is Hallettsville going now too? I'm not quite sure, but Dorothy would be your contact person to start this ministry.
We might be on the air in Hallettsville by the time this airs on the 20th.
That's exciting. So. Okay.
Oh, nice.
That's wonderful news. Yeah. So let's continue to pray for all of these families and that the word gets out. So I thank you so much for letting the word get out, to come in today and to talking about it on the air. It's such a beautiful ministry.
Oh, you're very welcome. It's a blessing. Thank you.
Yeah.
Thank you for having me, Pam.
Yeah. And
God bless you for the work that you do, because it's just a way to get the word out and get God's love and message out.
That's right. With God's grace, Dennis will tell you it's nothing but grace that we feel. I feel like it's just such a blessing to be an instrument, to be able to get the communication out there. And I personally have a big passion for it. And I'm so thankful that you could join us. And we will be talking to some other couples who have experienced the same loss, and there'll be more to come. But this segment is coming to a conclusion. And I thank you again, Miss Dorothy.
Absolutely. God bless you.
God bless. Yeah.
Thank you.
Joining me now is Jonathan Bertagne. Jonathan, welcome so much to this part of Red Sea Roundup.
It's great to be here.
Yeah. So to give you a little backstory, Jonathan and his wife are what I will call the cornerstone of Zélie's Hope. They are very much active in this ministry. And Caleb and I really wanted to bring him in to share their story, but most importantly, to let you guys know exactly what goes on at Zélie's Hope. And so, Jonathan, just kind of give us a little story about
real quick,
your entry.
I'll also add real fast that Jonathan is the one that has been doing the music for our awesome prayer videos that you can check out on our YouTube channel.
Awesome.
That's my only plug.
Okay, great. I didn't know that.
Yes,
So,
yeah.
kudos.
Well,
Nice.
I appreciate that shout out there, Caleb. That's a fun side project. But we're talking about Zélie's Hope today, so I'll kind of pull it back to that. We got started last year at the behest of Father Albert at St. Thomas. He was just receiving a lot more outreach and calls from parishioners that needed support for child and infant loss. And so Dorothy, who was talking previously, got shooting out some feelers for people that were involved, and Natalie and I, jumped on that. And as we've built up the ministry over the last year, we've kind of focused on three main areas that we really want to move forward on and build the ministry around. The first is just immediately providing support to Catholic families, married couples in the Bryan-College Station deanery area that have gone through infant loss. We have regular grief support meetings where we sit and we talk and we build that community around that loss. So really just dealing with kind of that immediate triage and the care
right.
for.
And you were telling me off camera too, we'll make a point of it, that it is deanery-wide. It's not specific to St. Thomas Aquinas. And again, I was telling Jonathan that I hope maybe Zélie's Hope will expand throughout our diocese as a program and a ministry.
Yeah. And the other thing too, I'll mention as a spinoff of that is that we're certainly not tied to any time limit, whether your loss was yesterday or 10, 15 years ago. You're welcome to come to our grief support meetings. And we've had people that have had losses 30 or more years ago. Their children are all grown, and still this is something that they can find healing from. So that's sort of the first pillar. The second pillar is providing those same families that have had a loss a formal opportunity to commend their child to the faith. Obviously, when you lose a child during pregnancy, you don't get the opportunity to baptize it most of the time. So once a year, we offer what we call the Precious Life Memorial Mass. And it's a really wonderful ceremony with specific readings that are picked out. We've had homilies done by some of the deacons. Deacon Mark did it the first time, and Deacon Bill from St. Anthony's did it in December. And that is just a formalized ceremony for parents to get that opportunity to say, okay, this is my child. If they want to, they can name it. And we have a book of the deceased to write it in, a really beautiful book. And then commend their children to the faith. And we have candles, and you get to take the candles home, and there's other little keepsakes that we give. And that's been a really, really great event that we've done.
Right. When talking to Father Albert about it, it was just so beautiful because as someone who has been through the infant loss as well, it's come a long way since 2008, when that was when I went through it with my daughter, Teresa. But I was going to say a little bit about the process now. So Father Albert was saying there was a lot of need. And so we want to make sure that there's someone out there for you. Zélie's Hope does offer that. But one of the first steps is calling your parish office, right? And there is Father Albert I was recently attending a mass in my friend's home. I've known her since she was 2, and now she's a mom, but suffering loss. And I was like, Father Albert, this is so wonderful for you to be doing this here in someone's home. He said, Pam, it's all in the rubrics. And he opens up the missal and says that it should be celebrated. So he's got such a heart for it. And that just blesses all of us so much to know if you do suffer a loss, there is a funeral rite and then this commemoration as well. He also came and did the internment too at the cemetery. Yeah. So you can speak a little more about that too.
Yeah. Sort of part of my story with Natalie, we got married here at St. Mary's, and had our first daughter, Emily, really shortly after. And when we were in Austin, we had 2 losses that were right next to each other. We were very fortunate at the time to be seeing a Catholic OB that pointed us right in the direction of the cemetery where we could bury them. And it was relatively a simple process. I don't say that too lightly, because making administrative calls like that when you're grieving is a really tough experience.
Not fun.
But to know that there was a dedicated process, really all it was call the cemetery and they say, okay, here's some forms to fill out. You need to get a priest, and then, schedule that burial and just let us know. Was really great. But for those that maybe don't have a Catholic OB or aren't familiar with that process, that can be a missed opportunity for a lot of healing. And I missed opportunity probably isn't the right word to say, but you get what I'm saying. With all of our losses, we've had 6 total. Those burials were incredibly healing for us, just to sort of put this very finite cap on, okay, the immediate, everything that needs to get done about this is done. There's no more administrative calls that need to happen about this. Now it is just a process of healing and taking that time to sit with this and process through and heal and come together as a couple. So, and that's kind of the last, I'll use that to transition to the last pillar that we really want Zélie's Hope to be, which is sort of this center of cultural change. I think you could probably speak a little bit to this, since you mentioned your loss was quite a long time ago. Is that still, I feel there is more that can be done to talk about miscarriage. It's a common story that we have where people will come to us at the end of a mass or at the end of a grief support group and say, wow, I wish this was something that was there when I had my loss 25, 30 years ago. We need to talk about this more. And it's so important that we do, because a huge part of being pro-life is also being open to this very real possibility of death. And it's hard. And so we want to make sure that, even if you haven't had a loss, coming to that mass and letting the people that have had losses know, hey, we're here with you. We support you as a parish, and that those children that you have that are waiting for you in heaven, they're part of our parish family too.
Right. Well, something that's come to mind I really want to ask you about is when you first saw this is available there, Zélie's Hope, you and Natalie decide, okay, we want to go and do this. What was your experience when you first started going to the groups, as far as the healing goes and how it all came together and meeting other people? So if you kind of go through that, like, where was your heart with all of that?
Yeah. It was a huge pull of grace, that I can't say was all just like a decision. It's like, oh yeah, this makes sense. When we got word of the ministry being started, we were still in the throes of grief from our most recent loss in 2024. And it was a really big thing that we sat and we talked about as a couple. And we felt the pull to go there. And we knew that it was like, okay, we've run the rings through a lot of this stuff, and our life doesn't look the way we thought it would. We thought we were going to have a whole horde of kids. We got the one. Maybe this is where we're being called to. And, the formation process was really simple. Dorothy is just an amazing ministry coordinator. She really knows her stuff. And so, getting that time with her to sit down and talk about what we wanted the ministry to be, it was really only a couple, brief meetings. And pretty quickly after, those meetings and that discussion, we had the idea of like, okay, let's have this central offering for, people to come and get that healing via a specific service for their loved one. And then obviously, that can't just be the only thing. And Dorothy is obviously very heavily involved with Stephen Ministries. So she has also just a wealth of experience with grief ministry as well. And so it was really like a 1-2 punch of like, okay, here's the center of the mass. And then we'll have weekly grief support meetings where people can just come and talk. And we'll pull questions from, a few different places and
Okay, that's kind of the segue into my next question.
Sure.
Is like, if someone were to come to one of these, is it like advertised in the bulletin and on the website? And
Yes.
if they come, what can they expect? Because I can see how that might be a little bit intimidating to come into a group like this, and we're going to
Sure.
talk about a hard subject and so forth.
Well, the first thing you can expect is delicious baked goods, because my wife is an amazing baker. And she always brings like just insanely good coffee cake. So at worst, you're getting free cake. We try to make everything as warm as possible for people to come in. We don't pressure people to talk about things when they're not ready. We have really great questions that we ask that we've built on from another ministry that's available. It's a couple that offers, they're called Redbird Ministries, and they have a whole program that you can buy online, and we invested in some of their questions. And really it's just, we'll open with a prayer. We've got a list of questions just sort of built off from their rubric that talk about, okay, how did you process this aspect of your grief? What do you find is maybe one of the most helpful things somebody has said to you? What's one of the most hurtful things somebody has like accidentally said to you?
Yeah.
Just little questions like that. And it's been really good. It's a friendly environment.
Sure.
It's a cozy environment. It's
Nice.
not one where.
Is it in someone's home? Is it there at the parish?
So we've hosted two or three of the grief support meetings at St. Thomas, but we had one at St. Joe's, and I think that's going to be more the model that we move out to, because obviously we have parishioners at a very wide range of areas here, and making that available at all the churches is good. If you're more close to one parish, that you can still come and go to the meeting there. So I think that's part of it. And then we're also interested in offering the mass separately at other parishes too.
Nice.
So, and we get, wherever we are, we get the coziest room with the nicest couches and a big old box of tissues in the middle.
Yeah, for sure. That sounds wonderful.
Yeah.
Ish. I mean, that's hard to say that, but it sounds very healing, which is, we know that the Lord is the divine physician.
Yeah.
So he's there in our midst when those things kind of are going on. So that's what they can expect. That grief support, I love that you were mentioning the different questions, which leads me to my next one is, what was some of the most comforting words that you received during your difficult times? I have mine too, but I want to hear what yours are.
I think probably the biggest comfort that we got during our losses was we came into those losses already knowing a few couples that had experienced losses. And this was, they'd experienced losses before they had even had a living child. And seeing them be able to just like come over to our house for dinner and still function, stuck in my mind really deeply. The other one, which this is a little bit of a longer story, but I love this story. It's so good. We'd gone to dinner at a friend's house when we were living in Austin, and he's one of like 7 kids, and his littlest sister was like 6.5, real feisty, just like talking her ear off. And at one point, I caught her, and she was talking to me. And she's like, "Oh, so you're the youngest?" She goes, "Oh, actually, I'm not the youngest." And I'm like, "Oh, really?" And she goes, "Come here." And she grabs my arm and pulls me over to this little corner of the kitchen. And there in the shadow box on the wall is a baptismal gown. And she goes, "Look, there, that is my little sister. I'm not the youngest. She died before she was born, and we love her. And we ask her to pray for us every day."
All the time.
And like that, we didn't have a loss for probably 1.5 years after that. But when we did lose, that thought came right to my mind. And it was like, oh, here's this grounding factor that's like, all right, I might not be able to feel it right now, but I know there's people out there that have experienced this, that have maintained their faith, that have lived on and still been okay, So I would say that's kind of one of the big comforting things. The other most comforting thing I've received is a friend of mine that, man, he's not even Catholic, but every single time we've had a loss, he's been there for me. And the best thing that he's always said to me is just 2 words: "I'm sorry."
Yeah.
I'm sorry. And really that is sometimes the most comforting thing you can say. I've had people say the darndest things to me, but
Like, you can also say what not to say if you like to add that.
I don't really have anything off the top of my mind to say. And these days, you give people as much benefit of the doubt as possible. As child loss is something that's just incomprehensible.
Yeah.
It doesn't click in our brains. And, when you tell people that you've had a loss, that breaks their heart. And when people's hearts are broken, sometimes they don't say the right things. So, I'm not going to put anyone on blast here on the mic or say like, hey, Mike Smith, I remember that thing that you said to me, buddy. Like, no, none of that.
Yeah. So I can tell you, like, just one of the best thing that I like to say, because this was what I feel like I've experienced with mine. And I get to take a deep breath so I don't start to get weepy, because as you know, I get very weepy sometimes. I'll call it the gift of tears, joy and sorrow that always comes very easily for me. But the way it was said to me, which was so beautiful, was that now your child looks upon the face of God and intercedes for you, all with your genetics and with all your humanity, to plead at the foot of the throne on your behalf.
That's
Changed
beautiful.
my life. Changed my life.
That's beautiful. I have a quote similar and it's from the saint that is my birthday saint. Her feast day is my birthday, which is one of my coolest flexes ever. Saint Therese of Lisieux. If you've read Story of the Soul.
Oh, yes.
Saint Zelie, who is the namesake of our ministry, she had 2 losses. They were older siblings to Zelie. So Therese is the youngest. And so she writes in Story of a Soul, she says, well, and I think she's like 6 or 8 at the time when she's talking about this, is that she says, well, I'm the youngest, right? And my older siblings, my older sisters, they dote on me, they spoil me. Would not my siblings that are in heaven spoil me with their prayers too? And I'll tell you, after all of our losses,
Amen.
with time for sure, you start to feel that they spoil us. When I look at my daughter and I see just this, she's got such a big personality that's not the personality of one kid. That's the personality of a kid that is she's being showered and sustained by grace that is brought from her siblings that are interceding for us, that are with our Blessed Mother.
And yeah. And another thing I find so much comfort and happiness in too, because you think this could be such a sad topic, but one of my happy thoughts is, you familiar with the book Heaven is for Real, about the little boy Colby? And he talks about, of course, his sibling who he saw after he passed, but that when I take my last breath, I will be greeted by my 4 babies. So I have this like imagination where I see these beautiful children around 2-4 years old. They're small, but they're still with all our genetics and everything to greet me as I enter in. Of course, hopefully ushered by the Blessed Mother.
Oh yeah,
I'm going to say that too.
Yeah, and Zélie has a quote on that too, right? Yeah. She says, "We shall find our little ones again up above," and that was easiest quote choice to put on the logo for the ministry ever. It's
so great.
That can be one of the hardest parts of the grief, is sort of leaving that behind and recognizing that, like, yeah, they're up there. But it's so different than if you hold that child, if you see that child.
It is. I mean, the hardest thing for me really was the lost years.
Yeah.
I would not be able to experience that with them. And I grieved over those, like many people, that if you've had a child for a while, my heart just grieves so much for those parents for what you did have. But indeed, we grieve for what we were not able to experience. All that being said, I still want to, like, with these last couple of minutes, talk about if you have experienced prenatal infant loss or infant
early,
loss.
Yeah, early.
Yes. That reach out to your pastor.
Yeah.
If you're here in the Bryan-College Station area, you can hook up with Jonathan and Natalie through Zélie's Hope. The ministry is online there at St. Thomas Aquinas. right?
Actually, we're on the deanery website, so it's
Deanery, is it working yet though? Because Caleb and I have been saying it's not working yet.
wow.
Last I knew, I checked.
Previously,
so you have
our
connections
URL
with eCatholic, so maybe you should ask.
Well, yeah, my wife works for them.
That's what I'm saying. So
she
it says it. When I went there several times in preparation for this.
bcsdeanery.org/Zelies-hope.
And it says, please contact eCatholic.
I'll go home after this interview and I'll tag her and I'll tell her it's down.
So all that to say,
She'll probably be like, "Oh, I told you 3 weeks ago."
the ministry
I never remember.
is, you can hook up with Natalie and Jonathan there at Thomas Aquinas to join their support group.
Yeah.
And the annual commemorative mass is what you
We
said?
call it the Precious Life Memorial
Precious
Mass.
Life Memorial. But if you are outside the Bryan-College Station area, we're going to just encourage you to reach out to your pastor. I know Father Ryan Higdon over there. We had him here for a while, so he's there.
He said my wedding.
Yeah. Oh, he was actually the parochial vicar at the school here at St. Joseph when my son was there. So he made a big impression on him. So thank you for that. Well, wraps up this segment, and there's going to be more. So if you'd like to join the conversation, you will find Jonathan and I over at our YouTube channel. But we ask you to join us there. But Jonathan, I'm glad you're here. So stick around and we'll have some more conversation. But until next time, we hope that you will join us on Red Sea Roundup and go and love your neighbor.
What else do we want to talk about? We could talk about.
We didn't even get to the grace. We started a little bit about the grace, right? But I really want to talk about, like, just how it's like you talked about how it's changed you, and I'm hoping you're meaning from like a deeper spiritual level, right?
Yeah.
So grief does, and so I can tell a little bit about mine. You can tell a little bit yours about how grief changes us.
Yeah, I mean, it's changed me more than just my spiritual life. It's changed me physically. I mean, for the people that are watching this on YouTube, you can see my whole arm of tattoos. Now Caleb says, "Oh," but I didn't. I was that guy that was like, dude, I have no idea what I would ever get tattooed on myself. I'm not opposed to the idea, and they're super cool. I just don't have anything meaningful enough. Well. 6 kids later, and that gave me the reason. So that's,
then tell us so you can show it.
Yeah.
We're on
if
YouTube
you look
now.
on YouTube, so I've got all the flowers, all the way up my arm, and they're all
at one time. No, you didn't do it all at once.
So it started up at the top, and then then we did the bottom half.
Okay.
So I got a bunch of wildflowers. Some of them are native to Texas, some aren't. Because where babies are buried in Austin at Our Lady of the Rosary Cemetery, they have a separate section where the flowers will bloom during the spring, and it's just beautiful. And we were just there a couple weeks ago. Maybe I'll get Caleb to like throw in a little video link like up here, and I'll send him the video. And there's butterflies that are swarming. I mean, it's probably 30 butterflies around these plants. And so I've always thought of butterflies with our children. And so I got 3 butterflies on here. One is this swallowtail. That's my wife because it's the biggest and most beautiful. There's a viceroy on the back. Yes, it's a viceroy, not a monarch. They're 2 different things.
Okay.
And then there's a green streak right here. That's my daughter, Emily. And my thought in the flowers was that, our lives here on earth are short and full of sorrows. It's another Therese quote, but we're sustained by the prayers from those that have gone before us. And so to me, we are these little butterflies that are just very shortly on this earth, but we're sustained by these beautiful flowers that are all the prayers from our children in heaven.
Right. On the theme of Therese. So when I read her book several years ago, I was a little bit, what's the word? I was like, this is so hard and it makes me irritated. But what she said was so true and so profound. And so these years later, I get a glimpse of what she meant.
Yeah.
And the quote was, "I can no longer suffer, for all suffering is a gift from my Lord."
Yeah.
When I first read that, I was like,
yeah, right?
No, suffering, no, bad, whatever. But she's really taught me otherwise.
Isn't that such an interesting part of grief, is that it wasn't till I started grieving that I really got a perspective for like what it can mean to be kind of angry with God, where you come to prayer and you're like, God, angry right now. I am so upset that this happened. I still love you. I still love you. My heart is still promised to you, but it's really hard for me to say that right now. And I'm really upset.
Yeah. I love that so much. Thank you for bringing that up, Jonathan, because I can't tell you how many times I find myself saying to myself or others, it's like, it's okay to be mad at God. He's a big boy. He can take it. And in some ways, I think that your comment about I'm angry at you and I love you, help me work through this kind of thing is a maturity, an emotional maturity with the faith.
Yeah, I cannot say that I had that. Those two things definitely didn't happen at the same time.
Yeah.
I definitely had prayers where it was just like, I'm mad at you. I'm not talking with you right now. I need a minute.
Yeah. So I could tell a bit of, since we're on the YouTube section of it. So what happened to me during that time? So you think about it, I already had 5 living children at the time I lost Teresa in 2008. My youngest was 2. And ironically, my 4-year-old, just a month or so before Teresa died, looked at me and said, is she going to live? I'll never forget that. And then, of course, it came to pass that she did not. And my daughter still is like somewhat of a mystic in her own right, my number 4. Anyway, that's another story. But so I had been living life kind of very much steeped in like what you do nowadays. You get involved in the sports and we were like 100 million% into the dance and everything. What I say that the grief did for me was it really, what I say was help me to like get my nose right above the veil of the world, because the grief just slows you down. For those of you that are not familiar, it also gives you this big fog. You get this fog where you can't really think of anything else, right? Yeah. Well, while I was in the fog, and I want to say it's a little bit above the veil, I believe he kind of gave me what I call like a spiritual chiropractic. He started to reveal to me those areas of my life that weren't not necessarily, they weren't serving him, but that they were too much of my focus, and my focus needed to be more on him. And that was like a spiritual realignment that I had during my grief.
Yeah, right. And I always come back to the Beatitudes on this. It's like, we hear the Beatitudes a lot, but it's easy to forget that the Beatitudes are what they are because, blessed are the poor and the meek, because they're the ones that are the closest to God because they're the most in need. They don't have anything.
Exactly.
And it's definitely not something that I think you can feel in the moment, for me at least. But you definitely that feeling when you wake up and it's just like, what's going on? You can't feel, you can't think right. And it's only by the grace of God that we're sustained in those moments.
Amen.
At all, grief is so much more. I don't know if this was your experience too, but for me, I grew up like hearing the word grief, and I always just thought it meant like, it's a big sad. You're sad, but it's a little bit bigger. But it's so much more than that. It's its own animal. It will slap you around, and it will. And
you know why that is? I think is because I actually lost a best friend. Yeah. My college roommate passed at 42, and that was really bizarre. Brain tumor. But the point was that grief like this is you're dealing with an eternal soul whose soul is still around. It's still real. And so it's a whole different ballgame.
And you have to wrestle with this aspect of like, well, why, right? Why did God give me this? I always found it difficult to not feel like, you go to the grocery store and you see somebody with a baby that's the age that your child would be. And you're like, well, they got the right version of that. And I got the bad version of that. But God doesn't give incomplete gifts.
Oh,
he gives us gifts. And the children that you had and the children that you have, they're given to you for the time that they're given to you.
Yes.
And you saying yes to those children is all God asks of you.
I want to tell you something frustrating and beautiful all at the same time. You ready?
Oh, yeah.
God trusts us with this grief. God trusts us with these tragedies to make good of them. And then in today's Magnificat, man, it was a great reading, was sorrow leads to joy. We are more aligned with our Savior in our sorrow than in our joy, because we're accompanying him on Calvary.
I think one thing that kind of comes to my mind in all of this is something that Trey and Stephanie Cashin talked about in an episode of Mystery of Parenthood a long time ago, that really has kind of like reordered the way I think of being a father, and is that we want to think that our children are ours, but actually God has given us the responsibility of being stewards over our children because they're really his children. And so the importance of your stewardship over your children is not diminished by the length of time you were their steward.
Amen. Yep. And to add on to that, because I'm the only one in the room that has adult children, is when your adult children start to make choices that you don't agree with, don't like, not living in the faith, not living in the church. What's the first thing I said? Okay, she's yours before she's mine. You love her more than I do. So this is on you to help with this, because that is, it's never more profoundly true than when they grow up and leave the home. Yeah. You're just a steward for a short time.
Yeah. I think that's, you kind of draw on something else there, is that grief with the loss of a child is not just grief that child didn't get born. You will grieve every birthday, every milestone. And we still have these moments that we look back on and we're like, wow, Joey would be walking now. Joey would be talking now. And you'll see that baby at the grocery store and you'll go, man, that's how big it would be. And it's hard. It's hard.
It is. I can tell you that he does turn our grief into joy. That's really been part of my experience. So now when I reflect, I have what I call, which is what you're describing, is what I call Teresa days, where I break down and cry all over again. Yeah. 16 years ago. Yeah. But most of the time and each day, it is thought of as a gift, and it brings me joy to remember her.
Yeah. Jonathan, I'd love to hear you talk a little bit about how to deal with, because a lot of people, after having a loss, that first time, maybe somewhere in the grieving process where they have a moment of joy, there's oftentimes for those people a feeling of guilt involved as well. There's even a Wordsworth poem about it from the 1700s called Surprised by Joy, right? How do you deal with that feeling? And what have you learned about how to deal with joy in the midst of grief and the guilt that really is probably more from the enemy than anything, right?
Yeah, sure. I think the biggest thing is this core foundation of the psychology of two things can be true, right? I can be sad and still have moments of joy interspersed throughout. That me feeling happy in this moment doesn't negate the fact that I'm still hurt from what happened. And then, from a spiritual perspective, recognizing that opportunities for joy are the Holy Spirit doing the work of transforming our suffering, right? We have this we're very fortunate as Catholics to have such a rich, just library of teaching around suffering. I don't think anybody else has the depth of teaching on suffering that we do. And the saints all talk about it, is that God allows suffering into this world so that he can transform it. And so when you start to frame your moments of joy amidst soul-crushing grief as sort of those gears of, transformation happening, that you can hold on to and say, all right, here's this little gem that I'm going to hold on to, and I'm going to keep it in my heart. And I'm going to say, all right, this is the joy that I have today. I'm going to value that. I'm going to praise that. And then you know what? I might just go back to grieving after, but that's okay. That doesn't negate it. Does that make sense?
Yeah. So one of the things that came to mind too, very similar that I heard in relation to the Blessed Mother, who is a model for me to always try and follow, is this is a Kimberly Hahn talk that talked about how Mary, while she's watching Jesus on and during his passion, she had much sorrow, she had much grieving, right? But deep inside, she had peace of heart. Why did she have peace of heart? It's because she had perfect trust in the Father's plan. So that's, I say that a lot. Oh, I believe, Lord, help my unbelief, but increase my trust, right? Because that is the cornerstone of getting through times like this, is trusting his providence for us, that he knows better than we do.
And coming together as a couple too. I think that's the other thing about Zélie's Hope that we try to stress as much as possible, is that this isn't just a thing for one part of the married couple. It's for both of you. Because statistically speaking, divorce rates are incredibly higher in families that have experienced the loss of a child. And it's real. Natalie and I experienced that. I remember when we lost Jane, our second loss, we came back from the OB, and she sat down and we were crying, and she was upset, and I'm very much the person that I got to talk through my feelings as they come till I reach this conclusion that's all right, here's how I feel. I said all this stuff out loud, and I kind of funnel it down to this concise view. My wife, Natalie, she's not that way. She's give me some space. I need to form a cohesive view, and then I'll come talk about it. Well, back then we hadn't figured that out, and we were going at it. And I remember it got to this head where we just we screamed at each other, and she looked at me and I looked at her, and there was this look in her eyes that was oh, this is real. This could tear us apart if we let it. And I didn't recognize it like that at the time. It was only many, many, many months, maybe even a year or so later, that I looked back on that and was oh, whoa. That was grace manifest that didn't go any farther than that. So, grieving together is, it's one of those things that's you need to grieve separately, but together, right? Everybody's going to have their own grieving process. And very often, rarely ever do people grieve in the exact same way. But being able to support each other through that is not a separate thing. It's not dependent on you grieving together.
Right. Well, so that leads me to a question too, is I think oftentimes, and this comes from a recent experience where I felt the husband was just really didn't really know how to process all of it. It was almost like you're getting all this information and you're just not sure what to do with it, or how to be there for your wife who's crying constantly. And you're so do you have any suggestions for these husbands?
These husbands.
Yeah, no, I'm serious, because you didn't have to go through the physical aspect of it. I mean, of course, that's a real thing. And so you may be looking at a deer in the headlight, go, what do I do?
So first of all, everything you've said, I'm yeah, I did that. Yeah, I did that. Yeah, I did that. I've done all those stupid husband things where I'm come on, we buried the baby. It's all done now. Why are you still crying? Done that, been there. So, my first piece of advice would be don't do what I did. Don't do that. But yeah, you hit on something very important there, which is, as husbands, there's this huge gap that we miss. And it's one, we don't feel the immediacy of that loss because it's not our body. We don't get to feel all of the sensations, all of the hormones and everything that's involved with the practicality of a loss. And that kind of distances us. I think there's something culturally that kind of pressures us maybe a little bit as men to be all right, that's not my wheelhouse. But the other thing is that we miss an opportunity, right? And this didn't click to me until maybe our third loss, that I realized that there is a disappointment in me that's man, you got all this time with this baby inside you that you got to hold. And I never got to hold that baby. I never got to be that close to baby. Women's DNA is changed permanently every time they conceive. I've never had my DNA changed by that baby. I don't get to carry that around with me. There's a little bit of like longing in there. But when you layer on societal pressures for guys to be, feelings are dumb, I don't have feelings.
That's right.
It can be a little hard for us. And so, but then, also on top of that, there also is
I'm
this
a man.
but also there's goodness in that too, because we want to be that
The strength.
We want to be that rock, that strength, that foundation.
Amen.
And so my advice to men would be, feel your feelings. Like, hey, it's okay to cry that you lost your child. That's good. But you can also still be that rock for your wife, but also lean on her. She wants to see that you're affected by it.
No kidding.
She doesn't want you to just be like Marcus Aurelius stoic. I have no feelings. This child's life is unimportant to me. That sort of thing.
Yeah, just hold our hand.
And again, just recognize
be
that, like,
there. Yeah.
yeah, hey, it can be different for you. You don't necessarily have to feel it in the same way as her, but just saying, hey, this child is important to me. I love this child. I care about this child. I miss this child. I wanted this child.
This child matters.
This child
and it always
matters.
does. So
Yeah.
I can say that wholeheartedly that, this goes back to just the grief of like losing my girlfriend, at a young age. And then of course, losing my child 16 years ago, that I really believe is because they have an immortal soul, that even though the years start to add up, it doesn't feel like that.
No.
At all. I'm so thankful for the time I had with my friend, but at the same time, I'm thankful the Lord did what he did in my life. I wouldn't be the person I am today without those losses.
Yeah.
So there's a lot of grace there. So I think, to kind of wrap up this episode, just talking about the gratitude in our hearts for these gifts that are these children that we did have and do have. And again, my gosh, 6, you said?
6.
You have 6 beautiful children that look upon the face of God to intercede on your behalf and your whole family. And I think, it's a good reminder for me, because like I was saying, when you have these adult children, I said, okay, Teresa, pray for us, so to call them by name, ask for their prayers in a constant way. So I have a lot of gratitude in my heart for how God changed me during that time.
Oh yeah. And it's wonderful too, to see that, we have some friends now that have 2 little daughters that are, let's see, well, they've got 3. So there's one that's 3, one that's 2, and then one that's like a newborn. And we started spending a lot more time with them and getting to see Emily do big sister stuff with them, that like, she's had no training in this. She's had no experience in this. And she's just like, we went to the pool with them the other day, and she was just big sister mode with with Violet. She's just like following her around, helping her up. And it's like, yeah, that's that intercession in motion, and it's hard. You just have to take time to get out of that immediate grief fog, like you mentioned.
Oh yeah,
and then
for sure.
Over time, your eyes start to open and those graces start to flow.
I now when I think of her, I don't feel sadness. I feel joy now and thanksgiving. I feel a lot of thanksgiving about it. Yeah.
I feel longing. It's
Okay.
not just like, I miss you. It's, I want to be with you.
Yeah.
And I know what I got to do to be with you. So I better shape up.
That's right. Yeah. Yeah. Well, Jonathan, I cannot thank you enough for joining us for this episode of Red Sea Roundup to talk about Zélie's Hope. And again, if you're interested in Zélie's Hope, you can find out more at stabcs.org if you're here in the local area. But by all means, if you're interested in starting a Zélie's Hope in your area, say Waco specifically, you can call Dorothy Pepper over at STABCS as well at St. Thomas Aquinas, and she'll be happy to do what she can to help you get your ministry started. So thank you for what you're doing. It's such a vital part. And so do you see how what you're doing to helping others is a vital part of the gift your children have given us?
Yeah, I do.
Thank you, Jesus.
Yes.
Yeah. Well, thank you, Jonathan, for joining us. And until next time, go and love your neighbor.